The following audio is from the Paradox Church in Fort Worth, Texas. To support the mission of the Paradox Church, text your amount to 84321 or visit us online at theparadoxchurch.com/give.
All right, good morning. My name is Jim, one of the pastors here. Good to have you. Welcome. We started this year wanting to talk about wisdom. Wisdom, it answers the questions that morality doesn't. Most of our lives aren't actually questions of right and wrong. They're questions of, is this wise or is this foolish? Most of life, that's what it is. And we tend to think of Jesus as only being able to answer the right and wrong questions of life for us. But in fact, Jesus, he offers us counsel for what is wise and what is foolish, which is most of life. Right? Most of the time in your life, you're not choosing between right and wrong, but you're making a choice of wisdom. What would be wise right now? And so we define wisdom as the competency to deal with the complexities of life. There's real life, there's the life that we think there is, but then there's real life, and wisdom is the ability to be able to navigate what real life is. And the Bible, it actually gives us what's called the wisdom literature. Right in the middle of our Bibles are 5 books of the Bible that read differently than most of the other books of the Bible. You've got Job and Psalms and Proverbs and Ecclesiastes and the Song of Songs, and they are written in this genre of literature that we call the wisdom literature, and they're meant to give us counsel on the majority of life, the life choices that we have to make that aren't just right and wrong. And so what I wanted to talk about, because it speaks of it so often, is this topic of friendship. Before we get into next week, sexuality and marriage and parenting and some other kinds of relationships, I wanted to talk about friendship. All throughout the wisdom literature, we see this reality of friendship. Job is about a suffering man who has terrible friends, right? Super legalistic friends, unhelpful, complete. You do not want Job's friends when you're going through a hard time. And then you get to the Psalms, and whenever David is writing a song about his friends, it's always that they've betrayed him, okay? So that's not promising. Ecclesiastes is Solomon just kind of really depressed, and you don't want to, there's nothing there. I mean, there is, but, and then the Song of Songs is good because the Song of Songs is about marriage, it's about romantic love, but it even talks about friendship and marriage. This is my beloved, this is my friend. But it's the Proverbs that speak the most about friendship in the wisdom literature, and they're full of wisdom about what good friends are and what good friends aren't, and how we can be friends and how we should be friends. In fact, Proverbs is going to teach us that who we roll with shapes how we roll. That the necessity for good, biblical, rich friendship is so vitally important if we want to live the beautiful life that we've been talking about. Right? You can live a moral life and still be a fool. You can live a moral life and not live a beautiful life. To live a beautiful life, you have to live a wise life. And to live a wise life, we need wise friends. And so Proverbs 12:26, for example, will say, the righteous choose their friends carefully, but the way of the wicked leads them astray. Or chapter 13:20, whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. Or chapter 14, verse 7, leave the presence of a fool, for there you do not meet words of knowledge. Proverbs is teaching us that who we roll with will shape how we roll, how we live a beautiful and wise life. We need to have good friends. Now, confession, maybe some of you can resonate with this, but I've never been very good at friendship at all. Part of the reason is, like most people these days, I blame my parents, okay? We traveled a lot, and my dad was in professional sports, and so we were always moving 3 schools a year. I would go to 3 schools a year. So I was always meeting new people. So I was trained to be really good at first impressions. So you meet me, and it's like, oh, Jim's great. Like we're gonna be best friends. And then the second impression, maybe the third impression, is when you realized I let you down very quickly, right? Never learned how to have deep relationships with anybody. Was never around very long to forge those kind of deep friendships. And so I've always struggled with that, by God's grace, trying to grow in my friendship. Another reason why is because our family at home was really close, ethnic family. My dad's one of 13, my mom's one of 5, have 55 first cousins. So 55 first cousins, we all lived within like 20 minutes of each other. They were my friends. Okay, so like my early friends were my cousins, right? And so that picture kind of looks like a young mafia gang in like an Abercrombie advertisement or something like that. But these were my friends, right? This is my family, these are my friends. And here's the thing, this was a group of friends, I love them. We were not pursuing wisdom together, okay? That was the winter wonderland weekend getaway. We did it every year. It was hockey, poker, we were not pursuing godly, wise things. But then, as I got older and built more friendships, my friendships now are pursuing wisdom. That's the locker room. We look like a aging boy band, and like past our prime, right? But these are groups of friends. This is a group of friends that are built on, not in this order, but sports and Jesus. Okay? And we are pursuing wisdom, and we are discipling one another, typically on a golf course, because that's the best place to disciple one another. But wisdom in the Proverbs, it calls us to consider our relationships. That life is too short, people are too weird, and God is too great to be flippant with our relationships. That we have to be careful with who we roll with, because that shapes how we roll. And so 3 things I want to talk about. The Proverbs talk about all kinds of stuff as it pertains to friends. But 3 things that I want to talk about in regards to being a good friend and choosing the right kind of friends. So here's the first one. The best friends tell us the truth. Look at verse 5. The best friends tell us the truth. Verse 5, better is open rebuke than hidden love. Notice the contrast. Better is open rebuke than hidden love. Verse 6, faithful are the wounds of a friend, profuse are the kisses of an enemy. Right? So the juxtaposition here is that friends are open in their love, not hidden in their love, right? That's the idea, is that if I love you but I don't tell you the truth, if I love you but never rebuke you, then my love is hidden. Love has to be visible. Love has to be visible and verbal. Right? If it's not, then how do we actually love? Love is an action. If it's not visible or verbal, then we're not doing that. And so Christian friendship puts truth out in the open. A faithful friend is willing to wound you for you. Right? So a faithful friend is willing to hurt you for your sake, tell you the truth for your sake, confront you for your sake, but like Judas betraying Jesus with a kiss is an enemy who just tells you what you want to hear. And so we deceive ourselves thinking, oh, I love my friend too much to say this hard thing to them. What you really mean, at least what the Proverbs is saying, you really mean is that you love yourself too much to put yourself through that awkward conflict or confrontation. And you're actually more of an enemy than a friend. Now, this doesn't mean, so just everybody calm down, okay? Some of you got too excited. I'm gonna go tell, that doesn't mean that we go sin hunting with our friends. It doesn't mean that we're always doing that. So you've got Proverbs 17:9. Whoever covers an offense seeks love. Sometimes covering the offense seeks love, but he who repeats a matter separates close friends. So 1 Peter 4:8 says the same thing. Love one another earnestly, since love covers a multitude of sins. So then which one is it? Do we cover their sin or do we confront their sin? Where's the wisdom? When do we do one or the other? Here's what I think the wisdom is. When your friend sins against you, cover it up. When your friend sins against you, cover it up, love them, forgive them, chalk it up to a bad day. But if you see a pattern of sin in their life, especially, maybe it's a pattern of sin towards you, but if it's a pattern of sin towards you, you might not want that friendship, okay? Love them, forgive them, reconcile. You might not, they just might not be a good friend. But if you see if they keep sinning, but if there's a pattern of sin, then love would say that you would openly rebuke them, that you would tell them the truth, because faithful are the wounds of a friend. We should not be surprised when friends sin. You are friends with sinners, okay? Jesus was friends with sinners, yes and amen, praise be to God. And you are friends with sinners. If wisdom is the competency to deal with the complexities of real life tells us that people are sinners. Now, some of you have a little bit of a skewed anthropology, an understanding of humanity, where you think that humanity is generally good and sometimes does bad things. But in fact, the Bible teaches us that humanity is actually fundamentally sinful by nature, and by the grace of God occasionally does good things. And if you think the other way, then you're going to be completely, utterly, consistently let down by people when you're surprised by their sin. And so you go from friendship to friendship and friend group to friend group and church to church and group to, because you're so surprised that sinners are sinning. That's what they do. That's what they do. You're married to a sinner, okay? You are friends with a sinner. Look to the person to your right, in fact. Look to the person, that's a sinner, okay? Look to the person to your left, also a sinner, okay? Your pastors are sinners, I'm a sinner. We are sinners. Sinners sin, they're gonna let you down, they're going to hurt you, they're going to fail you. That's just the reality of life, right? Water is wet, the Cowboys lose in the playoffs, and sinners sin. Amen, we'll see you guys. Go Lions, baby. Sinners sin. So here's what I've observed. Here's what I've observed over the years as a pastor and a friend. Certain sins that we tend not to talk about with our friends, okay? Because if you've ever been in a church for a while, there's two sins that we always talk about. You'll never go long in a church community without talking about lust and pride, okay? So we talk about lust and pride all the time. We love the idea of pride for some reason. It's like a humble brag in some sort of way where we are, I'm so wonderful, I just struggle with pride about how wonderful I am, and it's an easy sin to confess, okay? And then lust is just the thing that, what about greed though? Have you ever told the truth to your friend about their greed? The way in which they view money, their consumerism, their lack of generosity, perhaps. Have you ever confronted them on greed? Jesus teaches that money is the greatest spiritual threat to your friend's spiritual life. The Apostle Paul, he says money, it's the love of money is the root of all kinds of your friend's evil. So why don't we talk more about money with our friends? I wonder if this is it. Typically, and I'm not saying this is good, I'm just saying this is a reality. Typically, we're friends with people of the same means. And so we live in the same neighborhood and we buy the same clothes because we can afford them. We go on the same vacations and we go to the same restaurants. We're typically friends with the same means. And so I wonder if we don't confront them in their maybe use of money because it would be an indictment on ourselves. And so what if the sin of greed or consumerism or the lack of generosity that you see in your friends can act as a mirror to your own kind of sin or maybe just foolish financial choices, and together you can go to them and say, man, perhaps maybe I think I see this in you and maybe it's in me. Maybe we can walk together and follow Jesus in this and seek wisdom in our finances and godliness and the way in which we use money, because I want more of Jesus and so do you. Let's not let money slow us down. Let's go. And we tell the truth to our friend about the way in which they use money. What about self-medication? I've not found this to be very normalized, where we talk to our friends about the way in which they use food, alcohol, pills, excessive media consumption, excessive exercise, ways in which they comfort what's broken in their life. Right, so we comfort them, we're there for them, we're a good friend, and man, I'm so sorry, brother, and I'm so sorry, sister, and we're there for them in their hard times and their brokenness, all of that. But in the way in which our friends maybe cover over or comfort, self-comfort, those things, do we ever tell the truth? Brother, the way in which I see you use food, the way in which you drink alcohol, I need to tell you the truth about that. Our friends, they tell us the truth. What about how we talk? Have you ever confronted a friend about their speech, the way in which they speak? Maybe it's a wife that speaks a certain way about her husband. Maybe it's the way a father speaks about his kids. Maybe it's gossiping at city group gatherings. It's the stuff that your friend posts on social media. Do you ever confront them? Do you ever talk to them? Do you tell the truth to your friend? Wisdom teaches us that we should want friends around us who are willing to tell us the truth. We all have blind spots, and by definition, we can't see them, and so we need somebody else to see them and tell us the truth. The truth, Jesus said, will set us free. We want to be free. We want to grow. We want to mature. We want to see things that we can't see. Good friends, true friends, the best friends, tell the truth. Jesus is the best friend that we all have, and his love was always visible and verbal, never hidden. Never hidden love. Jesus, he tells the woman at the well, you've had 5 husbands. In fact, the man you're with right now is not even your husband. He tells the rich young ruler who had kept all the commandments but still loved money more than he loved God, hey, one thing you lack, brother, sell your possessions and follow me. Constantly he's telling Peter that he was wrong. He's telling him the truth, and he's rebuking the Pharisees. Jesus is a great friend, the best friend who tells us the truth. If love covers a multitude of sins, Jesus both loved people enough to tell them the truth and also loves them enough to cover over all their sins. Right? Dies for their sins. Greater love has no man than this for his friends, that he would lay down his life. Right? And so Jesus, he's a great friend in all of that, which means, by the way, it actually frees us up to tell the truth to our friends or to receive it, because there's so much grace for us. Right? Jesus' love has covered over all of the sins that we see in our friend. And so why wouldn't we cover over their sin with grace and forgiveness as well? And why wouldn't we be able to receive grace and forgiveness from them? And so we tell the truth to our friend, and we welcome Jesus' truth in our lives as well. So the first thing, the best friends, they always tell the truth. Second, the best friends are always close by. Look at verse 10. The best friends are always close by. Do not forsake your friend and your father's friend. Do not go to your brother's house in the day of your calamity. Better is a neighbor who is near than a brother who is far away. The best friends are close by. This is written in a culture much like mine, an ethnic culture where family was everything. Family was everything. So it's striking that Solomon here would write, hey, it's actually better to go to your neighbor or your friend that's close by than your brother who is far away. Right? Family has to love you. They have to love you, but your friends actually choose you. And family might be far away, but your friends, if they're good friends, true friends, if they're going to be intentional friends, they're going to live close. And so deep friendship, this is saying, needs proximity and presence. Right? They need to be near, and then they need to be available when you actually need them. Proverbs 17:17 says, a friend loves at all times, which doesn't mean that the friend is always around, because that's also a bad friend, okay? We need space. Sometimes we need space. But what it means is that the friend loves at all times, loves in the good times and the bad times. This friend loves you when you're in a good mood, when you're not in a good mood, when you're fun, when you're not very much fun, because sometimes you're not very much fun, because you're a sinner. Life's hard. The realities of life, it's broken and complex. And so friendship then is intentional, and so the best friends, they are close by, and they are there when you need them. And so we should perhaps go to the same church as our friends for proximity. Maybe we should be in a city group that's in our neighborhood because of proximity. Maybe we don't take the job promotion if it's going to move you away from your friends and your church. We at least consider proximity to relationships. If we want to live a wise and beautiful life, we need these wise and beautiful friends. And so what might that look like? Like take, for instance, going to church with your friends. Some of you are new here. I love you. Glad you're here. I don't love you yet because I don't know you, but I will love you. So glad you're here. You might not should come to this church. You should go to the church where your friends are. Now, if you're going to invest your time and energy into your people, which you will, that's probably going to mean you don't have time to invest then in these people. And so what makes a church is the family, it is the people, it is the relationships. It's not so much the preaching on a Sunday morning or the music or the programs or the kids ministry. And so why wouldn't we want to then invest in the relationships of our people and stay in close proximity? I know that sometimes that's impossible. You have personal convictions, theological, doctrinal convictions about what church is, what church should teach, what church should look like, but maybe they're not personal convictions, maybe they're personal preferences. And you really just want to go to a different church because the music's better or the preaching or whatever. And I just want to encourage you, I think for the sake of the church in Fort Worth, we should go to church with our friends and invest our whole life there and build into one another, discipling one another, growing into Christ, and being okay if the music's not what we wanted or whatever it is. Because here's the thing, this church won't be as strong as we could be if you stay here. The other church won't be as strong because you're not there, because friends are not investing in, I want you to consider those kind of things. Right? So I would rather some of you go to your friend's church and make that awesome than stay here, okay? Because I do think proximity is so important for friendship. But then also presence is important. Are you there when your friend needs you? You might be near to them, but are you there for them? There's a difference. I think true friendship is undervalued. Our culture values romantic love over friendship love, okay? So singles in the church typically feel ostracized and kind of outsiders because the culture out there is talking about romantic love. Often in churches, that's all we talk about is marriage and family, and we don't talk about friendship. We don't talk about friendship. And then many people who think they have friends have really what Aristotle called utilitarian relationships. So these are relationships, friends, that are actually just useful to you. They're not true friendship. Do you see the difference? So like our culture, it talks about romantic love, but then it talks about building a network, right? So for your business, for your popularity, for you have to roll with the right crew, you have to be friends with the right crowd. You got to build a network of business relationships, and that's the way in which we think about relationships and friendship often. Right? You're actually not building into true biblical friendship, but just gathering for yourself a network of people. And so let me be a good friend and tell some of you the truth. Some of you suck at friendship. And some of you feel lonely and unknown because you're not actually trying to cultivate true spiritual friendship, but just a network of people that will help you along. Your relationships are about building your business or getting in with the right crowd or knowing the right people, and not about intentional presence with real friends, where you are really there for them and they are really there for you. Of course, Jesus makes us his friends, and we are of no use to him. Jesus' friendship with us is not utilitarian at all because we have nothing to offer him. He needs nothing from us. He just desires friendship from us. And so what a beautiful example and foundation for our friendship then. That Jesus would welcome us as friends, needs nothing from you. You don't make Jesus more popular. You don't make Jesus, you don't offer him any counsel or help. Jesus just is friends with you. And if proximity and presence are necessary for real friendship, Jesus takes the cake. All right, surely I will be with you always, he says. I will never leave you or forsake you. In the end, Jesus is going to be the only true friend, the only perfect friend. And so we have a ton of grace for ourselves and for each other as we navigate being a good friend with proximity and presence. So 1, we tell the truth, right? Good friends tell the truth. 2, good friends, they are always close by. And 3, finally, the best friends make us better. I love this one. The best friends make us better. Look at verse 9 and then verse 17. Oil and perfume make the heart glad, and the sweetness of a friend comes from his earnest counsel. Highlight, underline, earnest counsel. And then verse 17, iron sharpens iron, and one man sharpens another. That phrase, earnest counsel, it's if you pull apart some of the language, earnest, it means from the heart or the soul, and counsel, it means secrets. So this is a friend who tells you soul secrets. And here's what's really interesting about this. It's not just that friendship makes us better, but it's not just that our friend comes to us as the expert and tells us what to do. Our friend comes to us and shares their soul. This is what I've walked through. This is what I've learned. Here's the mistakes that I've made. As I hear you and as I look back at my life, here's ways in which God has spoken to me in this particular way. And they share their soul with you. I was talking to a friend this past week, and he was just invited to be a part of some, I don't know, it sounded fake to be honest with you, but it was this Young Global Leaders Society. There's only 1,400 in the whole world, and anyways, he was telling me about some of the rules that they have, and you're not allowed, like if you're traveling, you might connect with one of these young leaders in a particular city and get together with them. And if you're talking to each other, you're not allowed to tell each other what to do or give advice. You can only say, here's how I've navigated that leadership struggle. Here's how I've dealt with that same kind of leadership issue. I've faced that same kind of thing in my own work or in my own life. It's the same idea. It's sharing these soul secrets. And here's the thing, like we want expert counsel. We want the specialists. We want to read the book, go to the seminar, listen to the podcast. We want to pay for the online course, the online class. But the wisdom of the Bible says what you need are a few friends that will share the secrets of their soul with you. That's what you need to have a beautiful, wise life. David Benner, he wrote this wonderful book for those of you that need to grow in friendship. It was helpful to me. he said this, he said, there's no higher privilege than serving as a soul companion to others on the spiritual journey. In this act, we are allowed to enter a truly holy place, the place where people meet with their God. Accompanying others in a relationship of either spiritual friendship or direction or mentorship allows us to share things that may have never been shared as fully with another human being. Some people may share moments of epiphany and ecstasy as they encounter the divine. Others may share agonizing doubt and despair as they encounter a glass ceiling that seems to block them from contact with their God. Both are equally sacred experiences. Yeah, so there's an earnest counsel, a soul secret that's shared between friends that makes them better. And then, of course, the most famous verse in Proverbs, like iron sharpens iron, one man sharpens another. We make one another better. That friendship, good friendship, true friendship is like sharpening your sword. I've told you this story a few times. I have a friend, a mentor, Elliot Grudem, who years ago, he was like, hey, so you're not very vulnerable, are you? I was like, I guess not. I mean, you're the expert, you tell me. And he's like, yeah, you're not very vulnerable. And so he said, he gave me this picture. He said, vulnerability is like handing someone your sword. They can defend you with it or they can run you through. Right? They can defend you with your sword or they can attack you. And I think in a similar way that true friendship, when we're vulnerable with one another, it's like handing our sword to our friends to be sharpened. Right? To be sharpened. I want to get better. I want to grow. I want to become more mature, more godly. I want to grow as a disciple of Jesus. I need more wisdom. And so I need friends that will sharpen me in that, right? to be sharp. But here, I think this is the key to the whole sermon, okay? Here's the key. That only happens. We will only get better, grow. Friends will only make each other better if we see friendship as making each other better and not just friendship for the friendship's sake. Okay, so follow me. One of the keys to real friendship is that true friendship isn't ultimately about friendship, but about something outside of the friendship. True friendship is not just about the friendship, but about something outside, something greater than the friendship. C.S. Lewis, he wrote a famous article, or it's really a chapter in his book, Four Loves. And he talks about this. He talks about friendship, and he's talking about romantic love. And how romantic love can be pictured as two people facing each other, right? They're facing each other and they're absorbed in each other. They love each other. They're all about each other. But friendship is different. Friendship is not face to face. Friendship is actually, we're looking at something else outside of us, right? So I'm absorbed in something else. I'm connected to something else. I'm committed to it. I love something else, and there just happens to be somebody side by side with me that also loves that thing. Right? And so his famous line, oh, you too? Friendship is, oh, you too? You love that thing too? You're committed to that thing too? You're absorbed in that thing too? You're about that thing too? And that's what real friendship is actually about. And so then he says this will cut. He says, that is why those pathetic people who simply want friends can never make any. The very condition of having friends is that we should want something else besides friends. We want to be about a shared mission. We want to be about the kingdom of God. We want to be about the glory of God in a city. We want to be about the advancement of God's kingdom. We want to grow as disciples of God Most High. We want to grow. Oh, you too? In church small groups, there's this group dynamics that are at play a lot. Sociologists teach us that if you've ever been in like a small group at a church, if the small group is firstly about friendship, it will never grow. What happens is the least spiritually mature person in the group, everybody kind of comes to their level in order to be friends and kind, right? In order to be welcoming, kind, friends, it's about the friendship, it's about the relationship. And so typically the group doesn't grow very much or very fast because they're going to the lowest common denominator. And yet there's different kinds of communities that are built on a shared mission, and there's crazy freakish growth. Like anyone in CrossFit here, okay? Anyone? We already know that you are because you've already told us. We know, right? We know you love CrossFit. I'm just kidding. So CrossFit, there's been a lot of studies done on CrossFit because it does an amazing job of building relationships. But CrossFit is not about building relationships. It's about getting stronger. And so you come into CrossFit and everyone, whether you're the weakest or the strongest, does the same workout of the day. right? And you're lifting different weights perhaps, and you're trying to beat your own PR and all of that kind of stuff, but you are growing fast because the relationships aren't built on the relationship for the relationship's sake, but on a shared mission of getting stronger, of growing. And that forges the friendships and the relationships probably stronger than if it was just based on the friendship itself. I've noticed this in my own life and observed it in others. Some of the most driven and successful people are terrible at friendship because their personal mission is so strong that whatever friends they have, they're just utilitarian. They're just using them for their objective. But what if our mission was about the glory of God, the kingdom of God? What kind of friends might we have? John Newton, he was this pastor in the 1800s, and he had this beautiful friendship with the great famous English poet, William Cooper. Their friendship is well documented just because of how rich and beautiful it was and how often they wrote. So you have these letters that have survived. And they wrote a ton of hymns together, hymns that we still sing to this day. They were such great friends, and proximity was so important that they paid this lady who had a big orchard in between their homes so that they could cut through her home to get to each other's homes and get there a little bit faster because they were hanging out so much. On January 1st, 1773, William Cooper fell into a deep depression and tried to take his life. And John Newton, he wrote in his diary the next day, he said, "I was sent for early this morning and returned astonished and grieved." They were really close friends, and though Cooper's suicide attempt failed, he was left, of course, with this just heavy depression and darkness over him for many days and weeks after. Newton was there by his side, quote, he was in constant attendance at his bedside, calming the afflicted poet from the effects of his nightmares, delusions, and hallucinations. I resonate with this story because I had a friend in a similar place. Some of us got away last summer, and he wept on the couch, sharing about how God has brought him through a dark depression and suicidal thoughts, and in part used friendship to do it. Newton was by Cooper's side. Eventually, the suicidal ideation subsided for Cooper, but for 27 years, he was in a continual and constant depression. To the point where he walked away from the church, Cooper, he walked away from prayer, he walked away from the truth that he had written so beautifully in his hymns, but Newton never walked away. Never walked away. I wonder how, how do you have that kind of friendship? Who forges that kind of relationship? It's really interesting, the same day that Cooper tried to take his own life, January 1st, 1773, it was a Sunday, and John Newton introduced a new hymn that he had written for his congregation on that same day. So on the same day that Cooper was falling into a great depression and was going to take his life, John Newton's congregation sang for the first time, "Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me." The second verse reads, "Through many dangers, toils, and snares I have already come. 'Tis grace has brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home." And I think the friendship, Newton was such a great friend because he knew, or at least he worked really hard to know, friendship with God. He wrote another beautiful hymn, and a couple of the verses read like this: "There is one there is above all others, well deserves the name of friend. His is love beyond a brother's, costly, free, and knows no end. They who once his kindness prove find it everlasting love. Which of all our friends to save us could or would have shed their blood, but our Jesus died to have us reconciled in him to God. This was boundless love indeed. Jesus is a friend in need." And so he knew Christ's love. He knew the love of a perfect friend, and it began to shape him and taught him wisdom and taught him how to be a good friend. Some of you don't know the friendship of God. Your whole relationship with God is based on only morality, right and wrong, but never the rest of life. You go to Jesus about what's right or wrong, but you don't go to Jesus about what you should do tomorrow. And so your relationship with him is cold and antiseptic and mechanical, and yet you don't realize that the message of the gospel isn't just that Jesus saves you from your immoral choices, but that you would be his friend. Abraham was called a friend of God. Moses was said that God spoke to him face to face like a man speaks to his friend. And Jesus says in the New Testament, he says, no longer are you servants, but you are my friend. John 15 he says, this is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Be a friend to one another as I have been a friend to you. Greater love has no one than this, that someone laid down his life for his friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. No longer do I call you servants, for the servant does not know what his master is doing, but I have called you friends. For all that I have heard from my Father, I have made known to you. And so, God, we ask that you would teach us how to be friends with God. That we would recognize just in our own heart this kind of distance that we have between us and you. This relationship that we've, been taught or fostered that just feels at arm's length and not very friendly. We were praying about this morning, that Jesus he's a friend. Like a friend, he's fun. Like a friend, our relationship with him doesn't always have to be so heavy. Some of you need to hear this. Jesus has already dealt with your sin. He's no longer trying to deal with your sin. You don't need to pay for your sin. He's taking care of the sin thing. Now he wants to walk with you as a friend. He's going to tell you the truth. He's going to call you to grow. But he'll always be there for you. He will not leave you or forsake you. And so, Jesus, would you stand before us as a friend? Would we see you as friend? And then would you make us great friends? Would you heal the wounds of betrayal? Would you give us grace for our insecurities? Would you give us wisdom and our friends? Maybe our life is really struggling because, to be honest, we've just been rolling with the wrong people. We've not been seeking wise counsel, but foolish counsel. We don't have friends that challenge us to grow. We've not been known. We've not been very vulnerable. We've not handed anybody our sword. We hold on to our sword really tight and we defend ourselves. And we wonder why nobody draws near. Jesus, help us with that. Give us beautiful friendships. If anyone feels like their relationship with God is cold and antiseptic and mechanical and just not very friendly, would you just hear Jesus' words? And maybe you need to hear them in just a different tone or something, but Matt talked about it earlier in worship. Jesus says, come to me, all who are weary, all who are heavy burdened. I will give you rest. It's an invitation of a friend. My yoke is easy, my burden is light. There's joy with me. I'm a fun friend. I'll tell you the truth, but we're going to enjoy life together. Walk with me, he says. Learn from me. Would you hear the invitation from your friend Jesus to walk with him? Yeah. Father, let it be. Love y'all.